Welcome to my Further Taught Me series, Volume 5, Series 22, titled The World's Dance of Death is Ancestral Violence Recycled. Yes, Ancestral Violence Recycled from old colonial masters to the new colonial masters as in the past. Yes, ancestral violence recycled from the smallest village to the biggest city as in the past. Ancestral violence recycled from the smallest nation to the biggest nation as in the past. Also, ancestral violence recycled from the smallest human race to the largest human race as in the past. Ancestral violence recycled, even from the little known man to the most popular man as in the past. Yes, which evil out of vain pride and vainglory thereof is an inheritance of intimidation, of which the most disheartening is their inherited hatred, even for their brothers, descendants of Adam and Eve, the human species of neighbors near and far. And they celebrate their serpentine ancestral traditions of violence and brutality, by which they measure their filled ego and vain glory of vanity. And they neither care about the most important, precious order of creation laid down by our Creator, the Most High, which commandments says we should love our neighbor as ourselves. The book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 39. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Nor do they care about the creation's mandatory requirements of love, the bond of humanity to his Creator stated in the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 37, and Christ said unto him, Thou shalt love the Most High, thy Creator, with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. Beloved brethren, but I hear these stories of unschooled legacy made up of spilled innocent blood of the oppressed, shared on the altar of sheer ancestral traditional inheritance of man's brutalities and tyranny. Even the spirit of man's colonization in absolute covetousness. That takes us to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 17. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Which covetousness through colonization was woven into consuming traditions of evil principalities, inherited by a generation of the culture of ancestral idolatry, a culture filled with violence continua. Beloved brethren of the world, let us break down the title into two parts for easy understanding. Number 1, the world's dance of death. Number 2, as ancestral violence recycled. Let's start with number 1, the world dance of earth. The above type of dance, in the context of MFTMS, My Father Taught Me series, and our subject matter, represent a performing art form that seductively involves the serpentine rhythmic, intentional movement of the body in pride and arrogance, often accompanied by music of the tradition of evil inheritance, to express the lusts of the flesh, the pride of life, that tells stories of the nature of Babylon in power, or simply for the temporary joy of the lusts of flesh, symbolized by serpentine movement itself. It uses its mammon-acquired net worth to convey ideas, communicate lustful feelings, and create aesthetic earthly net worth, symbolic with ancestral meaning for the dancer and deceived audience, which dance simply means unrepentant actions of sin, which is contrary to the commandments of the Most High. And this commandment that is being overlooked, especially concerning the penalty, which states, any soul that sinneth without repentance shall lead to spiritual death. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 18, verse 20, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. Now, number 2, Ancestral Violence Recycled. The ancestral recycled violence is permanently ravaging the world in perpetual violence of wars and strife, as long as this ancestral recycled violence of tradition is allowed to stay. It starts from those mortals who called themselves emperors, earthly kings and kingdoms, the generals, the untouchable princes and princesses, deceived by delusions of the serpent that they are immortal. And they truly believe the deceits until it's too late. When death knocks at the door, then the sudden chill that runs down in their spines on that day, when they found out all the serpentine deceits of their lives, which sum total was stated in the book of Psalms, chapter 82, verse 7, which states, I quote, "But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes." Ancestral recycled violence started from the spirit of subjugation and supremacy, originated from the serpent, their master, in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13 to 15. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. The arrogance and pride of ancestral violence now being recycled and short of humility, which says, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Now the judgment of the Most High came upon him, the serpent, and goes like this. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Full stop. And they say, it is the way of the tradition of our forefathers who conquered the world. So I ask, where are the so-called conquerors of the world as we speak? The earth has covered their decomposed body, right down there below, over 6 feet beneath, of which you still worship against the commandments of the Most High, that says in the book of Exodus chapter 20 verse 4, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above or that is in the earth beneath. Those your conquerors are in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Unquote. By this of which, by implication, they are bound to bow down to the image of that tradition, even in disobedience to the commandments of the Most High, our Creator. They rather prefer the world's generational dance of death, an inheritance of the unrepentant ancestral violence recycled, even from the third and fourth generations. However, it should be noted that each perpetrator of recycled ancestral traditional violence shall without fail be held accountable with their forefathers on the judgment day, the day that will separate the goat from the sheep in the parable below, wherein the inheritance of evil tradition of men were depicted in the parable as the goats, while that of the body of Christ were depicted as the sheep in righteousness, and hence separated as the sheep away from the goats. So this is stated in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 31 to 34, 41, and 46. I quote, "When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations of the world, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. And this shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal." Unquote. Furthermore, Christ had added this to the diehards of the world's dancers of death, with their traditional ancestral violence recycled and rebuked in the book of Mark, chapter 7, verse 9. And Christ said unto them, Full well ye reject the commandment of the Most High, that ye may keep your own tradition. Unquote. Of which in the course of time their traditional ancestral violence recycled, shall have a tag of judgment to contend with, which is the sacred commandments of the Most High. The justice and equity that happens in the day of judgment of the Most High, which is the day of visitation of the Most High, the Almighty, as in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 2 and 5. I quote, "But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow, the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, particularly the world's dancers of death and their ancestral violence of evil recycled. And they fear not me, saith the Most High of Hosts." Now, unquote. Now, the phrase, the sentence, "and ye fear not me," here means the boldness of sacrilege against the commandments of the Most High. There are those who, in their serpent-depraved minds, have chosen to bow to the commandments of the serpent through the inherited traditions of men, which promotes the world's dance of death, that also represent the traditions of ancestral violence recycled, in trying to hold on to oppressive power that is transient, even to the third and fourth generations of tyranny and inhumanity. All of which transgressions against the commandments of the Most High have consequences as stated below in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verses 4 to 5. I quote, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, either in the name that is in the name of traditions through the ancestral violence recycled, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath." Beneath here is still talking about your conqueror ancestors that have been buried below and beneath the earth, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Most High, thy Creator, am a jealous Most High, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Unquote. However, for those that love the commandments of the Most High and keep it, even from the fourth generation to the fifth, here are what the Most High have to say to them in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7 to 9. I quote, "But we speak the wisdom of the Most High in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom which the Most High ordained before the world unto our glory, which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Messiah of glory. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which the Most High hath prepared for them that love him. Now, the many ways of ancestral violence recycled are traceable to the brutality enshrined in physical and mental colonization. Physical colonization involves forceful taking over control of a people and their ancestral lands, stealthily or violently in conquest, and without any form of compensation or humanity. It is called physical settler colonialism, which represents the world's dance of death in form of ancestral violence recycled. Next is the mental colonization, which involved the total exploitation with prejudice of a race of people, mainly of African descent, in trade, commerce, including slavery of humans exported as goods in slave trade, which actions have been directly and indirectly practiced for a long time by the Western powers and hegemony. Britain, Europe, and America, all of which preyed mainly on Africans. This time around, the world's dance of death in form of ancestral violence is being recycled in new ways of mental and economic colonization, in which the economy and natural resources of their victims are being exploited, pillaged, and controlled remotely by the same old colonizers, where puppet leaders with questionable tags of character and integrity are enthroned, who are being used to enslave their own African brothers and sisters in the macabre of colonial mental slavery. These puppet traitors unleash untold hardship, pains, sorrow, deprivation, and degradation at the behest of their colonial masters, even unto the generation unborn, all at the expense of net worth of silver and gold. They sell in betrayal their conscience, their land, and their nations, particularly in Africa, at the behest of their colonial masters, who, in addition, make our currency continuously worthless through the instrumentality of their first-degree enslaved puppet leaders. These are traitors with corrupted mentality of Babylon, groomed to serving their colonial masters of old and young ad infinitum. The most painful dimension of all of this is the new phrase word, Jakpa, or Jakpa, of productive young men of Nigerians moving abroad to serve the second round of modern slavery in the land of their colonizers, which conditions in the eyes of the Most High amount to the world's dance of death in form of serpentine ancestral violence recycled. These happenings being in obeisance to the old and new orders of the colonial masters, of their colonial masters, please. However, a stage is being set by the Most High for recompense as follows. Now, all the gains of ages made from slavery and the likes, including exploitation in the name of IMF loans of imprisonment, based on its soulless capitalism of oppression, or whatever name it's called, and other vices by all the oppressive nations, powers, and principalities of the earth. Such acquired earthly riches at the expense of humanity and life shall soon be burnt into ashes in the making of the battlefield of wars. The wars being triggered between polarized, powerful nations of the world. Russia's Putin versus Ukraine, China's Xi Jinping versus Taiwan, Kim Jong-un of North Korea versus South Korea, Donald Trump with China, Iran, Middle East, Venezuela, and the world in the battle of power supremacy, etc. All of the above have to be funded from all extorted money from sources of oppression, explained of as being in the interest of the people of their nations, which they claim to be representing. But here's the catch and caveat that is very much unknown to the high and mighty of the world. The Most High knows clearly the kingdom they represent, that's the world leaders in question, and the principalities they are actually working for. And the Most High has given us this assurance in the book of Job, chapter 5, verse 13. He taketh the wise, I quote, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. Most of the rulership of the world have this mentality stated in the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 17 to 21. I quote, and he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many, many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But the Most High, the owner of our souls, said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward the Most High. Unquote. Therefore, fire will be kindled among the world's superpowers, and hence forced to buy expensive weapons to outdo each other, where all the extorted money that they ill acquired and exploited from weaker nations of the earth will be turned into ashes, which is what is going on with all superpower nations of the world as we speak, as of today. Therefore, the superpowers of the world will go bankrupt to fulfill the saying in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 11. As the partridge sitteth on eggs and hatcheth them not, so he that getteth riches and not by right shall leave them in the midst of his days, and at his end shall be a fool. Unquote. And furthermore, these leaders had determined in their evil hearts, in their greed, covetousness, and lust, to embark on some actions described in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, verses 11, 12, 22, and 23. I quote, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, just as is happening in Ukraine by the power that be, the Putin of Russia. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell in safety, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey. Examples of Russia to Ukraine. To turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land. And now, and the judgment of the Most High comes down. And it goes like this. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Most High. Unquote. The world's dance of death is ancestral violence recycled, and shall ultimately face the judgment of the Most High, as already discussed above. Remain blessed. My name is Steve Emmanuel Mojugbe, just a messenger to pass these messages to messengers of truth of the Most High and Christ unto the world. I'm an author, a Nigerian, copyrights reserved, mftmseries.com. Thank you for watching.